Welcome to the Bitesized podcast, where strategy and ideas come in snackable sizes. We're your hosts,
Rebecca
and Mel, powered by FMO Media.
And we've got some really exciting episodes planned for you all over the next few weeks to cover a range of topics, including paid media, copywriting, content creation, conversations led by some really special guests who are crushing it in the industry and in their specialized fields. So we're really excited to be able to introduce you to some outside voices, as well as chat with some of our team members as well, to get a feel for what we're doing behind the scenes and in front of the scenes when it comes to all things digital marketing. Right, Mel?
100%. Super pumped.
And I think we really wanted to kick off this first episode talking about where social media marketing has been in the last 5 years and all of the pivots and twists and turns that it's taken, enhancements with things like AI coming onto the scene, or really taking over the scene. That's at least how I think about it. What are your thoughts?
Hopefully not completely taking over. The landscape of social media has just been, there's been so many changes. I mean, I'm thinking 5 years. Oh yeah, that's 2018, right? Like you have to think about the physical year to understand what's really happened. And there's been so many changes in user behavior, in cultural norms, right? We've all gone through things as a world, not even just like as a country or as a state. COVID changed a lot across the US, across the world. It was really incredible how that affected even the social platforms and how people were using them, right? It's pretty crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, we talk a lot, especially on our podcast, strategy webinars and email strategy webinars, how I think right before COVID, people thought email marketing would die away, that podcasts would die away, especially podcasts, I think, because people weren't commuting as much as they needed to. And so there was less travel, which would make you think, oh, less actual listening to podcasts. But in fact, that increased, and we saw an upswell of podcasts hitting the scene. And now I think it's probably balanced out a little bit, but everything I think was put into perspective in a sort of digital sense since 2020. And people realized that, yes, having that in-person connection is the most important thing. But to get to that, you have to have an online presence so people know who you are, they can like you and begin to trust you.
100%. And you know what? There were so many friendships made online during that time. And I think that almost brought back like, how to make friends online, right? Remember like MySpace, where you'd add some like even random people, and then you'd go into Facebook and then you'd add your college friends, right? Like, or who you were going to be going to college with as soon as you got your college email. Yeah. And that. And so I think it kind of maybe not let down a lot of people's guards, but it opened them back up a little bit more. I mean, what we've seen really as far as what's dominating even on the platforms currently has been a lot of video. I mean, Facebook, YouTube opened up their shorts, where it was primarily known for long form content. But now there's a lot of short form content there, and people are growing really rapidly on YouTube because of it. I'd say obviously TikTok is the most explosive growth that we've seen consistently. And even with maybe some people not really trusting TikTok in other countries or this or that, it's still growing and people are still using it. So I don't think there's any stopping TikTok, if that makes sense.
I think you're right. And, when it comes to the short form content or the transition from long form to heavier short form, would you say that it's because of attention spans, or is it just because of how people are inclined to or conditioned to consume that content? Because I have some thoughts on it, but what do you think?
Well, when you ask it like that, I'm like, oh, that's a good question. My first thought is the attention span, but I'm almost thinking like maybe that's the easy way out, right? Like blame it on people's attention spans and like, oh, the current culture, like everyone just wants things 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, I don't know in the history of history, like who hasn't wanted things faster? That's what has allowed technological advancements, right? Like It's
Yeah.
because you want a more efficient way to get something done. So maybe the attention spans thing has always been there. And maybe a part of it is the conditioning. What were you thinking?
Well, I think of it as sort of like a chicken versus the egg sort of thing. Like, and that I think you're right. Are we conditioned? Are we conditioned to appreciate short form content because the medium or the tool, the vehicle that delivers that content delivers short form content for us? Is it because we do have shorter attention spans? But then we are also fine binge watching Suits on Netflix. So, so if that's the case, then do we really have a short attention span, or do we only have a limited attention for content if it's not engaging and value driven? And are we willing to binge on a multitude of content? Because I think about how we scroll through Instagram, through TikTok, right? We can scroll for hours, but we're watching a volume, a plethora of people's content for hours. So our attention is really focused, but maybe we're also easily distracted and we're constantly looking for the next quick video or quick bite-sized piece of information from a multitude of people. And so really it's not so much about our attention span as it is the sort of maybe instant gratification that you're talking about, which I think is accurate. We do want things quickly. I remember dial-up internet, and I don't know if I'd ever have the patience for that again. But if you put me on Instagram, it's very easy for me to just sit there if I allowed myself to, and I have, to scroll through Instagram looking at many people's content for a longer period on end. So that's why I think maybe some of it's a little bit of chicken versus the egg too, because how did we get to that point? Somebody had to create the technology on the one hand to get
True.
there.
It's true. And binge watching Suits was a direct, not jab, but maybe jab at me because I think I've binge watched like 17.
We both done it.
But I know I'm not afraid to admit it, and I'm not ashamed because I know I'm not the only one. So
I've done
there's
it
a lot
too.
of people that watch Suits recently. Well, think about Netflix, right? It's kind of like a trailer. And so I think a lot of people are putting out their trail. Like if you're thinking about your brand, an Instagram video, a TikTok video that's, 15 to 45 seconds long, it's a trailer so that people can go to your bit. It's not going to convert right away.
Yeah.
You need to run. I mean, there's a whole other topic about that with targeted ads, et cetera. But that one video is not going to make or break you. It's about the consistency of putting out constant trailers so that people are aware of your brand. And then you can kind of have that summary of your brand on your profiles, right? Like who you are, what you're about, et cetera, so that people can learn to know, like, and trust you and eventually do business with you if that's what you're selling online, right? I think that's really it. They're like mini Netflix trailers.
I like that. I think it's a
Yeah.
trailer of what it would be like to work with you, or a trailer for the product, because people do want to imagine what that experience is going to be like. And whenever I think of marketing, I always think, well, what's the experience that I'm helping to deliver? And you want that experience to be a representation of what that future relationship is going to be like. And it is about relationship building. And one of the things we also like to remind our clients is that it's not just about promotion and sales, but it's social media for a reason. And you are connecting with people. And you always remind clients, whenever we meet or we're strategizing or sharing, that it's that digital handshake. And what that really means is making that connection online.
Well, speaking of having these digital trailers, right, and kind of your brand awareness and all of that, what do you think is maybe most important to have on a social profile? And I'm going to preface this by saying I think a lot of people think that it's follower count. I mean, I have my thoughts about it, but I want to hear what you think.
I think it is engagement at the end of the day, because um, likes are a vanity metric, right? And they give
Mhm.
us that endorphin kick. We see people liking, and we feel good, and it makes us feel warm and fuzzy on the inside when we see people are liking our content. And follower count too also makes us feel really good about ourselves because people are following us, and those metrics are legitimate. But if you have a ton of followers and nobody is commenting, nobody is engaging in any kind of conversation with you, they're not messaging you, they're not saving your content, then are you really providing value to anyone? And I think, the unfortunate trend of buying followers is a good representation of that, because we've seen this with plenty of influencers out there. A lot of them will sort of pad their following with a quick fix, and then you see that their engagement isn't all that it really is chalked up to be, because while those followers could be real followers, they were bought to follow them, and their interests might not actually gravitate towards what that content is, or they might not be compelled to engage with that content, and they might just be holding a place that really doesn't mean anything if you don't have people having that conversation with you online. And I think about people coming to, whether it's coming to your website, whether it's going to your Instagram, they're looking for a solution to a problem that they have or a pain point. They're looking for inspiration for a lifestyle, or they're looking to have a conversation with someone. Sometimes people want to escape from the daily work grind and go to the entertainment side of digital and just have fun and kind of be distracted. Or maybe they do have something going on in their personal lives that they need to be distracted by, and they want to find connection or find something different and meaningful online. So I think you have to consider what it is you're providing. And remember, at the end of the day, it is about connection. And if you don't have that engagement, then what's the point? Are you really making an impact?
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I think Instagram almost proved that point to us when they took away the link in your bio and the features that you had if you reached 10,000 followers. So Instagram, if someone doesn't remember, you used to have 10,000 followers in order to have like this kind of creator status and be able to put a link in your stories or a swipe up link, and some different features that they were giving to creators. But then I think so many people started like buying their followers and they tried fighting against it. And they're like, you know what, let's just take this away because we want value. And I think Instagram was also testing that by taking away likes on a lot of posts and giving you the ability to see likes or not, because at the end of the day, it really is engagement that counts. And I don't think it's just Instagram. I think it's definitely across the platforms. Like, it's almost like you can't fake it till you make it. Here, you just have to be you on these platforms, or be authentic, at least to your brand, right? And what the messages that you want to give out. And you have to consistently provide value. If you don't do that consistently, you won't grow those followers. Those followers will drop off, and you won't have that metric really anymore. So seeing what new people you're reaching, I think that's super important. I think that's the only point of going viral, is reaching new audiences. And seeing how people like kind of engage with you and talk back to you online, right? It's a conversation. So
Yeah, absolutely. And you just made a great point too. I think content is still king, but
mhm.
reach is power. And if you have a larger reach, and maybe your follower growth is a little bit smaller a metric, you're still reaching more eyeballs. People are becoming more aware of you. And we have to remember that it takes time, right? We have to be patient. We just talked about instant gratification. And so, actually, I think that all goes hand in hand. We're excited and we're eager and maybe a little bit impatient to grow. And so, we want that higher number of followers or likes, what have you. But we have to remember that, just like dial up, you got to have patience with your growth. And yet, it also can be accelerated when you do start to build that consistency, gain traction, and see a greater reach. And then, of course, we're going to talk in some later episodes about paid media and how you can supplement and complement your strategy with a paid approach to directly target people who should be more interested in what you're doing, and be able to really focus in, narrow in on the audience that you want to attract. But regardless, it takes time.
And, when we're thinking about engagement rates and like kind of how I'm thinking about how we've grown with our clients and grown with this different social media platforms over the last few years as well. But with engagement, I think we're not one of the first people that noticed, but we noticed that video always got more views than like a static post, right? Or a graphic post. And I think a lot of professional services, because we deal a lot with a lot of professional service industries, and not just that, but hospitality. We started in the hospitality field. A lot of people just wanted to treat Instagram as like a place where they could just put up their flyer. And, we talk about those. I know you remember those days. And a lot of it went into client education as far as, hey, like, you can put up a flyer to let people know that there's going to be live music tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can put up a video of the last time you had live music and promote, this weekend's live music. I'm talking about hospitality right now.
Yeah.
But I just remember those days where I'm like, okay, some people, they're going to know and it's going to be helpful, but there's different areas that you put that on, maybe your website, an event calendar, Facebook events. There's different ways to deal with that than just putting up a flyer. Like, you just don't want to, I think about like a shoe store going out of business sale, with all these flyers all over the place. Like, that's what I see when I see like too many graphics or too many flyers. Either way, video has been a thing that we've seen, and we started doing like some moving graphics and some kind of engaging things in that manner. And I guess, how important has video really become? We're not the first ones to discover it, but I feel like we caught on pretty early.
Did. And we've always been ahead of that curve, which is great because we've been able to pivot a lot faster for trends because of it. And it's funny that you talk about flyers, because it could also apply, it definitely applies for anyone in the hospitality realm, but I also think it applies for other industries too. Real estate, for example, having an open house flyer, it's not going to have the same traction as taking a video of the listing and putting it into your reels, putting it on TikTok. YouTube Shorts as a great place for people to consume the content that we're conditioned or not, whether it's from us or from the platform itself, we're looking for, versus a flyer that's going to be outdated and it's not going to appear, or it's not going to be a best use of the feature of the platform. I always think stories is still a good place to put flyers, but I still think that they need to be in your brand and cohesive with your brand too, so that it's recognizable. It actually makes me think back in what we'll call the olden days, but it's still relevant, but the olden days of more traditional marketing and promotions where, you had to really be on the sidewalk putting flyers up for whatever you're promoting. And I've done that before, and a lot of storefronts hate it when people will put flyers up and kind of clog their storefront windows because it doesn't match their aesthetic and it doesn't look good for their brand. So if you don't want other people's flyers populating your physical storefront, then I like to think and equate it to, you don't want to overpopulate your digital storefront with flyers and salesy promotional type of content that doesn't belong there. There are other ways that we can give people the news and share the announcement that will align with how the platform performs and operates.
So no matter what, it's really important for people to be creating some video content. And I think Gary Vee kind of outlined it one of the best ways that I know how. It doesn't have to be super high quality. You don't have to have this whole script. You're already doing what you're doing on a daily basis. You can start by just documenting what you're doing. And I I know that because I've had this thought myself too. It's like, well, who cares what I'm doing? Like, who cares if I'm going to the grocery store or, or this or that, or maybe as a realtor, right? If you're in the real estate industry, who cares that I'm going to an open house, etc. People do care. The 500 people that watched your video cared and you popped up on their feed, was for a reason. And so whether you're just providing an escape for someone that's looking for entertainment, or you provided some actual value by adding some educational tips to that, like that's really important. You're not making that video content for your family, your friends, like, if for anyone that's ever opened a business, those aren't your first customers or clients. They never are, and if they are, it doesn't always work out. So it's usually, you gotta reach strangers. You gotta reach other people by doing some of that stuff, by putting out some of that video and documenting. So I think it's definitely easier than it seems. It's the consistency that's hard, which is, I think, a life thing, right? Being consistent in anything is difficult. And that's why you need to make sure that you set up systems to do it, right?
And it's really not a complex strategy, but it can be overwhelming because there are so many different elements that go into creating or curating or documenting content and then posting it. And it is a full time job. And so, the strategy doesn't have to be overly complex. I think a simple strategy is always a good way to go, especially with systems too. Having a simple system allows you to scale versus a
Mhm.
complex one. You're gonna get caught up in the complexity of something. But it all comes down to what you're saying, which is a consistent execution of a strategy, because you could have the most beautiful strategy on paper, but if you don't execute on it, then it doesn't matter what you have on paper. And I think that's where a lot of people who are trying to do it on their own can falter, because and we know it's hard for me to post consistently myself because it takes time, and so you have to develop that muscle or find someone who can help you with that, whether it is an agency like our team and our company, or whether it is someone in-house who's working with you. And that's where people do find they need that help, is the execution of it at the end of the day, because it can be overwhelming. But that's why I like the just do it Nike slogan, or just
Mhm.
create. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than simply hitting record, just like we did today.
We have so many conversations throughout the week as we're constantly working and learning different aspects of our business. And we're like, oh, we should hit record on this because it sounded like a podcast. We want to, like, everyone should know all of these different aspects. Like, all of our clients, we try and get them the information as quickly as we do. Of course, verifying that information once we verify it. But it's just crazy. Especially, I think we have a lot of clients that maybe are just getting started on their social media journeys, where they're like, I've recorded some videos, or I've done this. I created an Instagram, but I don't remember the password. I'm barely on it, or I use it to see what everybody else is doing. I know I have to do this for my business. And so now I need someone to, like, kind of hold me accountable. Just do it. Just create it. I really like now I need your hat, Rebecca.
I'm gonna send you one, Mel. Hats for everybody, but it is really true. And even for clients that come to us having a really strong foundation, they're looking for that next step, or the guidance, where do we go from here? And that's where additional parts of your digital marketing can come into play. We've been talking with some clients about automation and building that into their system so that they have more time to devote to building those relationships in person, and also having the touch points in order to reach out to their prospects at scale. Or how do we incorporate a really strong paid strategy and align it with an email marketing strategy? And so no matter where you are on that sort of spectrum of getting started, or you've already got a really strong presence and you're looking to do more, we can help with that. But I think you're right. At the end of the day, we just got to do it and be consistent with what you're doing too.
It's funny because we're talking about businesses in different stages that they're in, right? But no matter what, if you're a business, you're always looking for the ROI on a business decision that you made, right? So whether it's using a technology platform for your business to make things more efficient, hiring maybe a VA, right, to make your calendar more efficient, like whatever that looks like. One of the biggest questions we get is how do we measure that ROI on social media and social media campaigns, right?
Yeah, and I think it's a really valid question. And social media, any kind of digital marketing, you're always going to get a better metric and glimpse into your ROI versus any of the traditional methods. Traditional marketing methods being billboards, even radio and TV, the metrics you get from social media marketing alone are a lot clearer, and that ROI is going to look a little different. If you're putting into your marketing paid media advertising in the digital space, then that's the kind of return that you're going to be looking at and seeing, okay, what kind of return am I getting on that paid media? And you'll have a dollar value to be able to assign to that versus organic content. The return is going to be your reach and the engagement you get from that. So it's important, I think, to know the goal with every strategy. Email marketing, for example, is really key for conversion and converting your leads and your prospects or engaging your audience you've already got. And so you want to keep in mind what's the goal per strategy, or what's the goal with this campaign? How am I measuring it? And the great thing is that you can measure a whole lot better than you can, say, a billboard. You can kind of get an estimate of how many cars might go by, but do people really see that billboard on the one side of the road that they're driving on versus the folks going in the other direction who don't see that billboard to begin with? And, that flyer that you put on a door knocker, as a door knocker, are people actually going to see that? Or are they going to toss it in their recycling bin? Hopefully they're tossing it in the recycling bin, but are they going to toss it because they really aren't going to pay attention to it? And you really have no way. And I've been there. I think a lot of us in marketing have been there, done that, and we see the value immediately in being able to reach people immediately in the digital space versus the time and the effort and the energy that it takes to put in one singular piece of paper advertisement that you don't know if it's going to end up in the trash or not the next day. So there are a lot of different reasons, but I think the ROI, depending on what your goal is more readily and instantly available because you can see what's working, you can see what's not working. And then the beauty is you can adjust.
That's the biggest thing on social is like it's not permanent. What if you put up a billboard and you paid already and you printed it and did all this stuff and then it's up for a couple months because you have that contract and all of a sudden maybe your goal changes. Like that. And I know that that's happened before because I've seen it happen for different people with different flyers and things like that. It's like, oh, you got to reprint and do all this stuff all over again. Um, but I think even going back to like SMART goals, right? And I know everybody gets tired of hearing that sometimes in business, but things that are specific to your business, they are going to be measurable, which again, social media provides those metrics, achievable, relevant, and then putting a time to it, right? Like, hey, can this be done overnight? Well, most likely you're going to have to look at your first couple campaigns on a quarterly basis. You can kind of track and monitor it maybe month to month, but you won't be able to see that true return yet without looking at it over, 90 days or so, depending on the type of campaign or what you're looking for. I think one of the biggest measurements we will typically get from someone in their first couple days or first 90 days or even like first month, what they're looking for is, and it's not right or wrong, it's just kind of maybe human nature, is feedback from their immediate friends and family. Because those are usually the first people that you invite to your network. Like your phone connects to your Facebook and your Instagram and your contacts. And so for them to start saying like, oh, I saw you started creating some content. Like, I hope your business is going well. Like, you'll always kind of get that. If you're actually connecting it to some of those friends and family. We have some clients that just don't want to deal with it at all. And they're like, nope, start something new, something fresh, in that aspect. And that's it. But I think that that's probably the first thing that people will start to see as a quote unquote an ROI, because they're looking for that, not instant gratification, but more so that approval. And then I think they start looking at like, well, the reach and the engagement and what kind of new audiences are we looking at getting, and what kind of content should we continue creating so that we can create new goals and start keeping track of those. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that increasing traffic to either your website or your social platforms is going to lead to ROI because more people are aware of your brand in that sense. But it's a lot easier if someone's just looking to track dollar amounts. It's not a lot easier, but it should be done through a targeted paid media campaign, right? I feel like we talk about that a lot too. It's what ROI, what is that we're looking for? And if you're looking for a dollar amount, it's got to be the dollar amount that you spent.
Absolutely. And keeping in mind, this coincides with what you're saying too, Mel. You're building awareness. That's top of funnel. So top of funnel isn't going to be a dollar amount, because top of funnel is actually making sure people see you. And so that reach, that metric, making sure people see you, well, that's the ROI. That's the metric to tell you that it's working or not. Coinciding with that, keeping in mind that the benchmark is going to be you besting yourself. There are benchmarks out there to tell you, well, on average, this industry gets, or typically, but really you want to keep bettering yourself over time. And so that really comes down to collecting that data. Like you're saying, it's important to have that time period to evaluate. We like to do quarterly time periods so that we have enough data to pull from in order to be making data-driven decisions. And then I think the other thing I'd add to that too is making sure that you're talking with your sales team, or if your sales team is if you are the person responsible for selling in your company, then making sure that you have a two-way street when it comes to the communication. Because when you're working with your marketing team is supporting the business goals, but your marketing goals are not strictly the whole sort of big picture, right? And so you need to make sure that that aligns with the big picture. And that's where the communication comes in. That's why we ask a lot of the questions we ask on our launch calls, on our strategy calls throughout the year, because business goals change. They might change from quarter to quarter. They might change year over year, but it's important for us to know. And that's where the collaboration really truly happens, so that we can help support whatever those business goals are with our marketing efforts. I remember being a younger digital marketer and sitting in on sales meetings as a team. And then our marketing meetings, we would have the sales lead in that meeting too, so that we were having a two-way street conversation, because you need to be looking at the data, and sales numbers is data, and you need to be looking at your data and making decisions back and forth in each direction. So I like people to keep that in mind too, because if you are e-commerce and you have specific sales goals, that's important for your marketing team to know, so that we can make the best kind of decisions for your paid media campaign, or align any promotions that you have with your organic content. We're getting into the holiday season right now, and even though it feels too soon, it really isn't too soon to talk about.
Hi, Happy New Year.
We've already been thinking about 2024, but all of those Black Friday, Cyber Monday, if you're in the nonprofit world, Giving Tuesday, it's time to start planning for those. And you probably should have been planning for those a year ago, but it's time to start planning for those now and putting out that content now if you haven't, because you want to be timely with your sales team the season and what your top business priorities are too.
What's one of the biggest brands you know? Just like anything.
Oh my gosh, Apple, but that might be because I'm looking at my Mac.
One. Apple's a great one, right? So think
Yeah,
about Apple, right? And think about they've they have a great product. Some can argue on the quality when you're talking about Android, there's Apple and the phone and the camera, right? But then they have their marketing, right? Which has been stellar. I mean, since they took what was it? It was like 1,000 songs in one little like
yep.
thingy, whatever it was, right? And so their marketing was great. But you walk into an Apple store, you still have salespeople and they're well trained on their product. They have a process, etc. So as a business, no matter what, you're always going to need that salesperson to convert. And if you're the only person that's doing that, so to speak, how are you converting those leads, those messages? How are you constantly following up? There are systems that your digital marketing team can help, put in place and recommend to you. I know for our clients, we have some recommended scripts and outlines, etc. But that's something that your marketing team can't do for you. It's the salesperson. It's essentially you, until you have a sales team, right? Super, super important in that aspect. I really love the way you put that, but 100%, they definitely work cohesively to be able to do that.
For all of you listening, we're going to do our quick fire quiz. The Shebas in the office have a lot to
Very
say.
excited.
They are very excited. So, Mel, dine out or home cooked meal? Which is it?
I can't decide. That's a hard one. Dang, why is it the first one? I guess dine out. I guess I'll do dine out.
Okay, I was going to say dine out too because we all know I don't cook.
I love to cook. I just don't like to clean up. So dine out.
Dine out. All right. Physical book or ebook?
Oh, audiobook. Neither.
Okay, I will say this is a tough one for me because I'll do all three, but I do love the physical copy because I like to write in my books.
It's been a
Yeah,
while since I did that. I kind of do that though with the audiobook. I'll go to my notes so that I always kind of have that available with some keywords in the notes, on my phone.
that's
But yeah.
okay. First job you ever had?
Oh, probably babysitting. And then first real job was definitely in retail. I think I worked at a Rite Aid and I don't even know if they're around anymore. Or maybe it was Stop and Shop. I can't remember. One of those two.
I think we followed the same path. Babysitting.
Yeah.
I babysat twin boys. That was really
Ooh.
good experience learning how to handle twin boys and their older sister. Talk about time management. But then I worked in retail. I won't mention the name of the store, but it was always fragrant and the music was always blasting. And I'm pretty sure I lost most of my sense of smell working in that store.
I know exactly what you're talking. It's that one store at the mall. I don't think I ever went in there. It was too dark for me. I'm like,
Roller skates or roller blades?
blades. I think I'd fall if I tried skate. I've probably done the skates at like like an old school skate rink or something, but blades all the way.
I think it's counterintuitive because I always thought, well, the roller blades would be harder because they're all in one line. And then with the roller skates, they're like training wheels, but they're not. They're a whole lot trickier. Last one for today. You want to give this one? Go for it.
Beach vacation or mountain weekend? I'm interested in your answer. I think I know.
Beach.
Really?
Yeah, it's not that I don't like the mountains. I do, but I would rather be on the sand and the water than in the woods. I think about like bears in the woods and and ticks and yeah, so I think I'm more of a beach person, but I do appreciate a good cabin trip. No camping.
That's what I imagined was like a cabin, like an Aspen or something. Like that would be, I would choose mountain weekend if that was it. But if I just think about it like firsthand, beach vacation, 100%. Like
Yeah.
give me my margarita, mojito in the sun. Let's glow up. Let's do it. Anything can get you in the water too, but just
That's
Dip
true.
your feet in. Go to the pool instead, swim up bars and go.
Exactly. Well, I guess we'll see you at the beach then.
Yeah, right.
Well, I think that's all we have time for today. But thank you guys for tuning in for the first episode of the Bite-Sized podcast. Really exciting. This is Rebecca, and
Mel.
for another snackable strategy, or should we say strategy that's snackable?
Strategy that's snackable. You can take it in
I like
bite-sized pieces.
to have it. So we'll catch you guys on the next one. We're excited to showcase all of our guests that are upcoming and then some. But until then, thanks for tuning in.